It's the Agribusiness Report. I'm Tony St. James, joined today by the Honorable August Pfluger. He represents the 11th Congressional District of Texas. Great to see you.
Tony, great to see you. Always good to be with you. Thank you.
Well, last time we saw each other was a little closer to home in Fort Worth, but we're in your office now. It's, by the way, a busy office this week, right?
It is. And in D.C., there's always things going on, but I think the focus of what Texas is doing, and I know you have a lot of activity and interaction with West Texans. We appreciate that, but we are busy.
You serve on a few committees here in the House, including Homeland Security, also Energy and Commerce, and that's a perfect one for you to be on because of something known as the Permian Basin.
No, that's exactly right. And you know, one of the things that we do in Texas is we try our best to make sure that we have representation on all the committees. Every committee helps Texas in general, but they help us cover agriculture, not just on the House Agriculture Committee, but on the other committees like Ways and Means. Homeland Security, obviously, with the border issues, and Energy and Commerce has a lot of interaction, quite frankly, especially when you talk about energy.
I hope you don't mind. I want to bring up something that has really affected the energy producers throughout the Permian Basin, especially along that Texas-New Mexico line. It was the lesser prairie chicken, and has spilled over into farmers and ranchers' land as well. Has that been a challenge, and is it indicative of some of the challenges landowners are facing?
It really is, and when you look at what this administration is trying to do, they're coming after private property. And yes, it impacts the energy business, the oil and gas business, drilling. And it's not just the lesser prairie chicken, by the way. There's also a lizard, the sage dunes brush lizard, that has also been listed. And you see what they do, the way that they work, and the weapons that they use to try to attack private property rights is really harmful. And so ranchers, farmers, energy producers, people that have business interests, if you're building a road or a bridge, all of these things are going to be negatively impacted. We're fighting with the EPA, we're fighting with Fish and Wildlife. They just don't have a realistic and a stakeholder-driven model that these programs are abiding by. I mean, they're overreaching in almost every area. It's harmful to Texas.
So I'm curious here, because a lot of times we'll say it takes an act of Congress for this to happen or whatever, but we're not actually talking about acts of Congress here. So how does Congress reel things back in?
What a great question. That's the heart of the fight that we have here in Washington, D.C. I call it the Article 1 fight, which is getting the power of the purse, getting the role of Congress back to its rightful place, which is a co-equal branch of government. And these agencies are writing regulations, and they're writing rules, and they're writing things that we have to follow, and they have the full force and effect of the law. If you don't abide by them, then you will be considered a criminal. But Congress didn't pass those. Congress didn't actually approve those. And so this is going to be the big fight in the next 10 to 15 years, is how do we get back to a three-branch system of government that our founders thought that we needed? Because I can't see a big difference right now in the way the Biden administration is running things and that of 1776, when we had a revolution breaking away from a monarchy, a strong executive. So this is the fight that we're in right now.
Maybe another good example is waters of the U.S. You have a waters of the U.S. that's defined, it's stuck out there, and then maybe is extended, and then an administration comes in, rolls it back, a new administration, tighter. Is it possible for Congress to write everything that they intend? It would seem to be impossible.
Waters of the U.S. is a great example, because look at what President Trump did. He took a reasonable approach. He said navigable waterways have a certain definition. It's very limited. It doesn't include creeks that run through Concho County. It doesn't include waterways that are not navigable. And again, this is for the purpose of taking private land. And so President Trump made a reasonable rule. It was easy to comprehend, easy to read, and now the Biden administration wants to go just the opposite direction. But no, I don't think it's possible for Congress to write every single thing down. However, we're watching very closely the Chevron deference case. And a lot of people watched what happened in West Virginia versus the EPA. And this is about the overreach of government. We had a meeting this week and we talked about breaking down the regulatory state, the administrative state, deregulating things. And I think if there's a legacy that President Trump had in his first term, it's going to be deregulation. He allowed our economy to flourish. He allowed middle class to flourish. He allowed farmers, ranchers, energy producers, manufacturing, all sectors of our economy to do things because they could have a reasonable approach. Yes, they want to take care of clean air and clean water. Yes, they want to abide by local and state laws. But yes, we want to compete with China. And that's what, to me, agriculture really needs a boost to allow them to do that.
Final one here for you, because it does affect a good portion of your district. Farm Bill. It's teed up. What are you watching?
Well, we're hopeful. G.T. Thompson has done a wonderful job of leading the committee. You know, I think he's got a good bill, and they're going to mark that bill up, and they're going to get to a point, I believe, that will have a lot of good conservative inputs into it. The big question mark here is the Senate, and what does Senator Stabenow do? Is she going to be willing to come to the table? We're all interested in that. The reference prices have been adjusted to help our producers. We've obviously gone through a bad drought. We're looking at different things on how that safety net continues to provide for the national security needs that it really does. So I support what they're doing. I'm hopeful that they're able to get that out and we can come to some sort of agreement with the Senate. And I think the reality is there's a political narrative and environment that we have to operate within. One thing I'll add on this is that we are very cognizant of a lot of producers, both livestock and crops and anybody who's in agriculture, that has to deal with predators, that has to deal with feral hogs and coyotes and the different vultures and birds of prey that are wreaking havoc, not just on the land, but also on livestock. And so we're leading on those issues. We want to see those things included, not just in a farm bill, but in an approach to allowing the agriculture business to do what they need to do to produce the fiber and the food needs for our country.
So good to see you. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
And for your work.
Thank you.
It's the Honorable August Pfluger. He represents the 11th Congressional District of Texas. From the Capitol, I'm Tony St. James. It's the Agribusiness Report.